if you look at Obama's history, this guy who was a crack addict, this guy who had, was on crack and chain smoked and flunked out of Occidental College, then goes to Columbia and then disappears. He's classmates with George Stephanopoulos for 3 frickin' years, and George Stephanopoulos can't remember a well-spoken black guy that he supposedly went to school with at Columbia. Then he suddenly appears at Harvard, and he gets into Harvard and gets a full boat scholarship at Harvard because it's paid for by Min El-Sur, who's the finance minister for Saudi Arabia. Really? 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 And then he completely lucks out because he runs for Congress, he runs for Senate in Illinois, and the only reason he ran is because he was a Democratic sacrificial lamb, because nobody in their right mind was going to run against Jack Ryan, who was the Republican senator for Illinois. He was 18 to 26 points ahead in the polls. Suddenly, and this is my theory about how the Borg are responsible for Barack Obama. Have I ever told you my theory about how the Borg are responsible for Barack Obama? You want to hear it?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Okay, are you a Star Trek fan?
Not quite, but sort of, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, for those people out there, for your Geekosaur people who are Star Trek fans out there was a Star Trek show called Star Trek Voyager. And the Star Trek Voyager, let me just briefly, Star Trek Voyager gets in a fracas with this being called the Caretaker that then shoots Voyager to the other side of the galaxy into the Delta Quadrant. As they're making their way home, they come in contact with the Borg. They capture a female Borg, pull off all her accoutrements, and put her in this gorgeous skin-tight suit. And she becomes 7 of 9, who becomes part of their crew. 7 of 9 is played by this absolutely gorgeous actress named Jerry Ryan. Jerry Ryan decides that she's going to get a divorce from her husband because her husband apparently took her to a sex party in France. Of course, and that's an oxymoron right there, because just going to France is kind of a sex party. In and of
Stop it.
Just walking around the streets of France is a
Oh,
sex party.
forget it.
Next
Okay,
a
stop.
sex party in France where he supposedly forces her to kiss a girl and then divorces her husband. Well, somebody releases these documents, and as they release these documents about him supposedly going to the sex party and making his wife kiss a girl, the guy that she's married to just so happens to be Jack Ryan, who is the Republican senatorial candidate and Republican senator for Illinois, and he is forced to drop out of the race, and guess who wins the Senate?
Oh,
Barack Obama.
God. It's so sick. Okay, great.
He gives one speech at the Democratic convention, and 4 years later, this guy with 147 days of work experience, less experience than you need to run a Burger King, this guy becomes president of the United States. It's fascinating. It's amazing. It's stupendous.
Sean, you should have your own television show. You're just a hysterical person.
Gary, the theory is that he not only knew personally, but worked for, ready for this, Osama bin Laden, because he spent time in Pakistan and Afghanistan in the early 1980s as a cutout agent for the Central Intelligence Agency.
Yeah, I've been hearing that lately.
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
because that's the case.
Yeah.
How does he get hooked up with? How does he get taken to dinner by the president of Afghanistan? How does he get hooked up with the finance minister of Saudi Arabia, who pays for his Harvard education? Because how does he go to Columbia and have nobody know who he is? Because he was a cutout. He tells us in his books that he went to Pakistan and Afghanistan because Americans couldn't go there, because he had a passport that said he was Indonesian. So if somebody wants to school the Donald on constitutional reality, you can't be, forget about the birth certificate. If he was born in Hawaii, that's fine. But you can't be a dual citizen and be president of the United States either. And he gave up his U.S. citizenship when his mother gave up her citizenship, and when he was adopted by Lolo Soetoro, when he was abandoned by his communist radical revolutionary.
Okay. But let's get to some more important stuff, because I appreciate that. It's hilarious, and
But
you should.
links to Osama bin Laden.
I hear you. Absolutely. There's no doubt about it, and the absurdity is just everywhere.
So if you look at the last couple of weeks, all of the novel things that have been going on. For example, you have Donald Trump, a billionaire worth arguably $2.6 billion, is now actively going after the President of the United States to question as to whether or not he was actually born in the USA or not. Well, suddenly, even though Abercrombie, Governor Abercrombie, one of the best friends of Barack Obama, says as of January 28th, I'm the governor and I can't find the birth certificate. There is no birth certificate. It doesn't exist. It's not here. Obama then turns around, just sends his lawyer and says, well, I just didn't get around to it till now. Bam, here's my long-form birth certificate.
Right.
Now, again, with no internet input, with nothing else, I looked at this birth certificate, so this is purely my opinion, because I work in the newspaper and magazine publishing industry, because I published a newsletter for 17, 18 years or so, because I work with Photoshop. This is one of the worst forgeries I have ever seen.
That's what I hear as well.
All I did was blow this up a little bit. And I'm just looking at it going, okay, there's a bunch of numbers on here that one of them's faded, two of them have been changed. Then I look at the security paper on the edge, and it's completely different. This is why they have security paper, so people can't monkey with documents. The edge of the paper is a completely different design as what's on the inside, which is blurry, which means somebody's laid it in. Then this isn't even a photocopy. It's a Photoshop document that's been layered, brought into Illustrator, flattened, and then turned into a PDF. And then if you look at the information on the birth certificate, just the information alone, those are the technical things that are wrong with it. If you look at the information on the certificate, that alone should be triggering a congressional investigation. For example, number one, I believe it was and I don't have it in front of me, but it was the Kilapani gynecological and obstetric and pediatric hospital, I think is what it said on it. This hospital did not exist until 1973, and it certainly was not named that when Barack Obama was born there in the 1960s. The other thing is that they listed his father, Barack Obama Sr. This is interesting because they had Ann Dunham, and then they had to write the word Stanley on top of it, like she'd forgotten her first name or something. And then Ann Dunham listed her race as Caucasian, but it lists Barack Obama Sr.'s race as African. Well, African is not a race. Africa is a place. He's Negro. And that is what they put on there, which means that the same politically correct people that put this together also put together the same laser copy fake that he put out there, which also said African on it, by the way. So just those things, the fact that the name of the hospital's wrong, the fact that it's African instead of Negro, the fact that you have numbers that have been actually switched to the top, there should be a congressional investigation upon this right now.
Well, also, not only, but I mean, putting out a forgery, if he did nothing else wrong in his whole regime, putting out the forgery and saying is lying to Congress and the American people, that's also a actionable offense. Just that alone.
Sure it is. Well, and again, and I'm not one of the birther guys because here's the and let me put it out there to people who are all going to jump
Neither
up and
am
down
I.
about this. And look, I am telling you, this guy was born in Kenya. I am telling you, we don't know where the hell he was born. We don't really know who his real parents are. We don't know where. For all we know, this guy was born at midnight on 6/6/66 on the city of the Seven Hills in Rome of a jackal with a 666 on his forehead, and now he's been shuffled off.